I think we should start with the one that actually played at Toronto. You had the chance to see it there at the world premiere?
Yeah, the world premiere, which did not really have any of the stars, so it didn't feel like a world
Like a
premiere.
world premiere.
But
But
regardless,
nonetheless,
I was first. I got to leave my YouTube comment first
so
at
tell the
Toronto.
people
Yeah.
about Dumb Money, the newest movie from Craig Gillespie that's talking about the GameStop debacle.
Yeah, Dumb Money is the first past the post
First.
movie to adapt the GameStop stock saga of late 2020, early 2021, still ongoing,
times.
depending on your opinion, into a movie based on the book The Unsocial Network, which is from the same
Yeah.
author, I think Ben Maesdrich is how you pronounce his last name, who wrote the Social Network book. So it's got some of that DNA in there. It's also got a producer tag from The Winkelweis, which is a
That
little
one's
bit
weird.
weird.
We'll bring that one
considering-
back.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
return to that one. But this is, telling the David versus Goliath story of how some regular investors, people who do not make their living on the stock market and more are making speculative buys, ended up sort of forming this like massive, powerful economic force and subverting Wall Street's expectations by shooting GameStop stock through the roof. It's a unusual story, kind of stranger than fiction kind of thing. There is a lot of like really interesting aspects to how the industry is kind of rigging these stocks to perform in certain ways that benefit the largest investors. And Dumb Money doesn't really want to get into all of that. It's more about the cultural kind of subversion, and there's lots of references to tendies and diamond hands and the kind of things that you would see posted on Wall Street Bets at the time. I thought it was like kind of breezy in the way that it takes you through a lot of those details, but it also, because it doesn't really stop to explain a lot of them or interrogate a lot of them, it's more of just like an ensemble comedy in that sort of subversive Craig Gillespie writing style. I don't know. I didn't really take a lot more away from this than I think I would have from like reading a Wikipedia, aside from maybe a couple fun performances. But what did you think of Dumb Money?
Or the book, right?
Yeah.
I agree with you. It needed more Margot Robbie explaining, the stocks and how they actually work, like previous movies have done. But here, it really is dependent on the cast. I thought that a majority of how they explain things to you is through B-roll. I don't know how you feel about that. Like, if I'm watching a movie, I don't want then Stephen Colbert from an old clip explaining what
Right.
happened with GameStop. I don't need to see you cutting away to other news clippings, because to me that's just like a YouTube video montage. I want to see
Yeah.
the characters, the actors that you hired, kind of bring that to life. And there are some moments in there where that happens, but yeah, they leave it to like clips that have already been out there. To me, that doesn't work as well. The one time when I think that mesh of reality and what's happening with the actors works is when they're having like the Congress hearings, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So to me, the movie really stands out, like you were saying, from that cultural perspective of being someone who invested their money in there. How it was led, how honestly it became a little bit more than a movement. There was like an ethos to this. People
Yeah.
were sticking it to the man and not even making it be about money.
Right. It
so
became less of an investment and more of like a political stance,
how to blow up a stock over here,
Yeah.
honestly, because there was a lot of people who they should have pulled out when they should have, but they were kind of following this dude's manifesto that was on an Excel sheet. That I found fascinating, and it kind of teetered between wanting to go fully in on that and then also wanting it to be like, no, it's all memes and culture and all these different things. They're very slick on a lot of moments. They present to you how there's a lot of language used on these subreddits. And I'm like, okay, were we going to dive in deeper? And then I realized they only said that so that the audience knows for 30 minutes later why they get shut down. He's like, but that was always there. I was like, okay.
Exactly.
Sure.
Yeah, like
Right.
there's
That's still an issue, though.
there's a moment where they're like, there's anti-Semitic messages and death threats on the board, and someone literally just goes, that's only a small section.
Yeah,
of it.
that's a
It's
small little. I didn't
and I think
care for that in the narrative because it felt like the movie was using it to justify how they wanted you to feel about something instead of really interrogating it. And you can't be interrogating these rich people and not every other aspect of it.
Exactly. Like, as true as some of those things might be, like, to sort of brush over them, I think is ignoring some of the most interesting aspects of this, the sort of like unfettered language of it, and the sort of like unruly nature to it is so central to like what the movement was sort of like. It is kind of about like anarchy and chaos and you know, and I don't know. I think there's a more interesting movie that would actually acknowledge those things, but it felt a little bit too much like an overview and a lack of specificity. You mentioned that scene that sort of shows you everybody preparing to speak at the congressional hearing, and it kind of gets you. It gives you like the behind the scenes of that. That's some of the best stuff in the movie because it feels really centered in an actual moment with like actual human emotions and gives you insight to these people. For the rest of it, I didn't feel that specificity. And I think a lot of that is because most of these people, the people that are being shown, played by people like Anthony Ramos and myha'la Harold, you know, there's a lot of really, American Ferrara, a lot of really good actors in this film. They don't feel as specific. And I think it's because they're mostly amalgam characters. They're not actually based on real people. They're kind of compilations of ideas of people or people that were interviewed for the book. And I think it just ends up not really feeling centered in reality, just in sort of like the movie's reality, if that makes any sense.
100%. Just breaking these three down right here. And I would even include Nick Offerman. Nick Offerman has just been the go-to dude who just comes in to either be a MAGA person or a big rich person or whatever it is. But like you were explaining for the three kind of central characters, or not central, but outside of the main plot that are all being influenced, America plays this nurse who is investing all her money because she kind of believes in this. Harold and I forget who the other actress is, who's like her roommate. Oh, Talia Ryder, damn, shout out her. Those two are they're both in school together in college, and they believe in it to a degree that they're following his manifesto. Anthony Ramos is a GameStop employee who's just there, and he thinks it's kind of cool to jump on it because he hates his corporate overlords, one of which is his boss, who follows things to a T, and I knew immediately who that guy was, bro. I don't know when it clicked for you, but the moment I heard his voice, and there's his crow eyes right here, I knew exactly who it was. The moment they reveal his mask and they show him...
that was a jump scare for me. I had no idea he was in this movie.
I knew it was him, but they didn't need to do that with him. That was super creepy, and that man has played superhero villains. But you look at these three characters, and I knew right off the bat what was going to happen to each one. I knew which one wasn't going to pull out. I knew one of them was, and I knew the other, they were going to find like a middle ground. Oh, yes, they didn't pull out, but then also got the money that they needed. Like you said, it's an amalgamation of real people that they end up just feeling like stock characters for the movie. For the rest of them, though, you have your two main characters in Paul Dano, his wife played by Shailene Woodley, who they got her way, way back over here. I thought they had an interesting dynamic. I wish we saw more of them. A lot of their time is then split with the family that I do think has funny moments. There's this one sequence early on where they're driving and the mom gets scared. It scares the dad, which scares them in the back. And it's this ripple effect. I thought it was interesting for the themes of the movie of what can happen when someone pulls out, you know, and everyone gets scared. I've also been in that scenario driving where you get a passenger who freaks out and then it causes this ripple effect. But then you have Pete Davidson, who I thought was funny at the beginning. And then they let Pete Davidson maybe a little too much.
I mean, you got him, you got to use him, I guess.
Sure, I suppose. I don't know if there was...
It feels like Pete Davidson being inserted and not Pete Davidson playing a character, which, like, your mileage may vary on that. He's definitely, like, funny, but it's one of the things that also makes it feel like more of an artificial world and not like actual characters responding to the reality that they're living in.
Yeah. Overall, that was decent. I don't know if there was any other characters like Sebastian Stans playing one of the Robin Hood bros. Yeah. Looking creepier than he did in the Hulu show, the FX one.
Yeah. Or creepier than, what was it, Feast, too? That's another thing, is that, like, the epilogue of the film kind of tells you more about that character, and that's kind of one of the things that I feel like would have been good to see, but I feel like maybe they were worried about libel or something if they showed the text messages. I don't know, but
yeah, and that's what brings up the producers.
Yeah, right.
If you feel that there are certain parts of the story that feel a little too focused on when they could have shifted some over here, or like they're going after certain people, you know, you start thinking of who the producers are on this movie, and I think back to what The Social Network did that came from this writer who also did this one, and it makes me wonder if the twins didn't like The Social Network, what reverse engineering did they do to make sure they were attached on the follow-up book? Why are they producers on this?
Right.
Did they go to school with some of these capital fund, these hedge fund people? I think there's too much behind the scenes for them to have just joined a project, one that was flipped so fast. So I think it's a little sketch there. But hey, that would be for Dumb Money 2 or whatever follow-up they would have there.
Yeah. It definitely feels like a betrayal of the movie's ethos, as in like the elites are ignoring the and taking advantage of the regular man, brought to you by people who run
Also,
crypto scams that
right?
take advantage of regular
It made
people.
no sense, bro.
Yeah.
It almost like, hey, look over here, look over there. I'm
Yeah.
gonna find this other movie. But yeah, Dumb Money out in theaters now. It's getting wider.
Perfectly watchable, just kind of not much beneath the surface. One more question, actually, before we move on. Do you feel like it's impossible to make one of these like good this soon after it happens? I feel like we need at least like a 5-year moratorium on any biopic.
I would agree with you, probably 9 out of 10 times. I'm not going to say no, because there have been some where they flip them really fast, and it's that immediacy of it that's pretty good. A lot of the times it's more salacious, right? It's because things are still going on that it feels like, you know, why is there a Gabby Petito doc? Wow, while we're still looking for her. Why is there, you know, Tiger King was one of those where it helps build a lot of hype while it's still happening. But are they as concrete as something where, yeah, they take their time? Absolutely not. So there's a bunch of these on the horizon, you know. I don't know if you would recommend this out in theaters or if you would recommend it at home, just like Netflix's, which is also still in the works, right? Like, is that going to be a bigger hit because it knows how to release it to audiences out there? I would recommend some other ones that we've also brought up at festivals in the past. Diamond Hands was a really good documentary out of South by. Gets into the culture. It's pretty much a documentary version of this as they go through a bunch of the people who were involved in it. But like, there's going to be a dozen of them. I know HBO had a series that I think had one of the Succession boys narrating it, if you remember that. So there's already a lot of content about this event. And at least the money was enjoyable enough. So I do agree with you there.
Yeah, I feel like it's maybe stream at home, but it's not the worst thing to see. Maybe your junior price tier is what makes sense.
I might junior price it. So if it's $5 at the movie theater, go for it.